Hey everybody, my name is Gayla Zoz and I'm here today with some folks from Kimbrough Law who are going to help us answer some questions about advance directives. Joining me today is Allie Adkins, the firm's associate attorney, Mary Jo Johnson, and Robin Lacrimosa, both of whom are the firm's life care coordinators. So we're going to start with you, Allie. What is an advance directive?
An advance directive for healthcare is an important part of your estate planning process. It's a document regarding healthcare decision making. You might have heard it be referred to as a living will or a medical power of attorney. Instead of it being two separate documents, it's actually one complete document, which is the advance directive for healthcare. And it's the document that doctors and hospitals in the area are used to seeing in Georgia. And so the document is sort of two parts. The first part is where you select your agents, and these are the people that you want to be making medical decisions for you if you are not able to do so for yourself. So that's the first part. You name your agents. And then the second part has to do with selections around treatment preferences. So you're able to make selections, what kind of treatment preferences you would want if you were in a state where you were unable to do so, like a state of permanent unconsciousness or something like that. You're also able to go ahead and make decisions regarding things like burial versus cremation, or if you want your agent to have the power to be able to donate your organs or donate your body to a medical study, or if you don't want them to have that power. So in our signings, we go through all of those sort of questions, and you're able to go ahead and make your wishes known.
So why is this such an important part of an estate plan, Alan?
An advance directive for healthcare is a really important part of your estate planning process. I think first and foremost, you're able to go ahead and select who you want to be taking care of you, who you want to be making these decisions for you when you're not able to do so. So you're able to affirmatively give that power to someone. And then also you're able to go ahead and let your wishes be known on what you would want in certain health care events. And then I also think it's important because I think when people think about their estate planning, they typically think about, okay, what's going to happen with my stuff after I die? And that's important, and that's definitely a part of it. But the advance directive for healthcare and a financial power of attorney, those come into play when you're still living, but you're incapacitated. So they're very important and documents that need to be prioritized and put into place.
Well, I know, Allie, that the talking about these kinds of things can be really hard for a lot of people, and some people don't talk about it at all. So
Mm-hmm.
what are the legal consequences for a person who becomes incapacitated and they don't have an advance directive?
Okay, so that's a good question. I think, and I agree. I mean, it is hard to talk about in our signings. We usually start with this document because it does have some heavy decision making, but the consequences for not having one in place are real, and your family is the one, or your loved ones are going to be the ones kind of getting the blow from you not going ahead and doing this. So, some consequences of not getting one in place is first is you're not getting to go ahead and say, this is the person, this is the child, this is the sibling, this is the parent that I want to be making these decisions for me if I need it. So you're not getting to go ahead and select who, and then who your backups are. And then you're also not getting to go ahead and say what decisions that you would want to be made if you were in a state of permanent unconsciousness. What kind of treatment would you want? Would you want your body to be kept artificially alive for this amount of whatever? Any of these sort of things, you're not getting to go ahead and state what you would want. While we recommend always talking with your family about it too, it's nice for your family to have this completed because they're able to go off of what you have stated. I mean, it is heavy decision making, and I think it allows your family when they're going through something, when they're going through this with you, to be able to take some of that heavy decision making off of them, and they're like, this is what mom wanted. And so you're able to do that. Also, a big legal consequence of not having an advance directive in place is that when you create or when you complete an advance directive for healthcare, you're selecting your healthcare agents, as I mentioned earlier, sort of like a legal guardian. And if you don't have a advance directive in place, your family would have to go through the guardianship process to be able to make these decisions for you. And the guardianship process is expensive, it's lengthy, it's honestly just not something you would want to be doing. Don't want to have to be going through the court to get this power. While you're going through such a difficult time with your loved one. And so that's a big legal consequence of not getting one in place, is that the guardian is, you'd want to be able to avoid the guardianship process, and you can do that by going ahead and naming your agents.
Okay. To me, it comes down to control. A lot of people don't realize that if they don't do these documents, they don't have control over these decisions or over who's going to make these decisions. And I'm curious, Mary Jo, what are some of the reasons that people put off creating an advance directive? Why do people find it so hard?
Yeah, I agree. As Allie said, it's a very difficult conversation to have because it's an uncomfortable topic. We don't want to talk about or think about life-threatening situations or death and dying. Those have always been very hard for us to talk about. And it's interesting because it's a way of life. It's inevitable. So it's important to have those discussions. But for all of us, I think we can relate to that discomfort. And many say that, oh, not yet. We don't need to talk about it now. It's not time yet. But we all know, I think we can assume that it may seem too soon until it's too late. And so it's really important to have that timely discussion. And I think people put it off because they're not really sure about how they feel right now about something that they can't imagine in the situation, in the actual moment of that tragedy or life-threatening situation. And their wishes may change. So it's very hard to make a decision about something about care in the future when you can't imagine what that might be like. I think sometimes as people age as well, they develop medical problems and they're more willing to undergo treatments that they may have rejected when they were younger and healthier, or quite the opposite for some as well. So they're worried about changing decisions. And if they had a document, if that was set in stone, I think that's one of the reasons people are reluctant. And I think people also say that they're afraid to put on their advance directive to, no cardiopulmonary resuscitation, which is the DNR, or the do not resuscitate, or as known in hospitals as a full code. And they're afraid that if they indicate that, then they're not going to get the care that they really need and deserve and desire because they're already labeled as a do not resuscitate. So I think they fear some of the care that they might not receive then if it says that. And, many say in the moment that I'm very healthy, but if I were ill or in a serious accident, I would really want to weigh the quality of life, the life-saving interventions, and what kind of quality of life I might have or not have. So I'd want to weigh that decision at that time. And then others say, but if it's an end of life scenario, I don't want to be resuscitated. So there are different factors that could go into different decision making.
Yeah, that is so true. And just a moment ago, Allie talked about the legal consequences of not having an advance directive. Mary Jo, what are some of the personal consequences of having one?
Yeah, I think she also hit on about, well, certainly we know that your wishes won't and can't be understood and respected, because if you didn't have those conversations and decisions made through your advanced healthcare directive, then they can't really be followed. I also think as well, when you're really looking at if you didn't have one in place, then you could be put on life support because they could do a full code status. And then, if you didn't have a DNR, you could be in a difficult situation where life-sustaining or artificial treatment is initiated, but it could be very difficult to get off of that, like a respirator or a feeding tube. And it could prolong your life without necessarily any quality to your life. So that can be very tough on the loved ones, that if only that decision would have been made, it could have been made easier. And just one last thing in regards to the family conflict that it could cause. I'll share with you a very quick story, because if you don't have an advance directive in place, let's say a mother with 6 children, and they can't make a decision and they're all disagreeing, and the doctor asks them literally to vote. Close your eyes, raise your hand, and vote. And this happened to me, so I'm saying it real quickly. But and it was very difficult because it was a tie vote. It was 3-3. And there was a lot of disagreement among the siblings, the children, because some wanted to save her life and others said, well, no, mom told me her wishes were, don't let me go. And they had disagreement. So that was a very personal situation that caused a lot of conflict for the children. So the greatest gift you can give your children is an advance directive for healthcare.
Mary Jo, that's a striking story, and it points to the hardships. Just it's the starting point for a discussion of the hardships that a person's family could face. If that person is incapacitated, the family has to step in. So, Robin, what are some of the other hardships that the family might face?
So Mary Jo alluded to a lot of them. I worked in the emergency room for many years, and I also say that this is the greatest gift you can give your children, because if you haven't had these conversations, and even it sounds like in Mary Jo's case, if you have, the doctors basically in that emergency situation, when they do not think that there is a sustainable life left, in addition to the fact that you all are there having to acknowledge that your loved one is passing or is most likely going to pass, you're having to make those decisions, which even if it's the most cohesive, loving family, that's a really hard thing. And there are things sometimes that I have seen and heard in those, emergency situations that that family is changed forever because of the conversations that were had. The other thing I think that happens is, imagine if you have some kind of catastrophic event and you're in the emergency room and you can't speak for yourself and they can't get a hold of anybody. They're going to do whatever needs to be done because they can't get a hold of your children. No one's answering the phone. Maybe there's no local children to decide. Sometimes we've gotten a child on the phone who just says, I can't be the one to do this. In which case, 99% of the time, they're going to do those life-saving measures, even if they don't necessarily think the person's going to have quality of life at the end. So if you have an advance directive and you make sure that it is at your hospital or your local doctors have it, even if they can't get a hold of your children, they're going to follow what your wishes are, which is what you've already written down in your advance directive. So there's a lot of different reasons for that. And it really comes down to kind of letting your family have a map to follow of what you want and a way for you to speak if they can't reach your family or your family. And we have had people who have advance directives and the children were in that moment, I can't be the one to say, take mom off the life support. And the doctor would say, okay, well, your mom has clearly written out, this is her wish. So are you okay with us following her wish? And that way, that child isn't the one who's having to say, let's end it. They're saying, I'm not ready to let mom go, but this is what mom wanted. So that's what we're going to do. And then the doctor will follow that wish.
Yeah. So, Robin, if a person comes to Kimbrough Law and they want an advance directive, what can they expect?
So we really help them with these hard conversations. And sometimes I think having an outside person bring up these conversations takes out some of the emotional factor of it. And when I've watched when our attorneys Haley and Allie are having these conversations, the family member, I think, feels empowered, or the client empowered to say what they want. And sometimes you'll have the children be like, oh, but mom, we want to do everything. And the mom is telling the attorney, I don't want everything. And then that is the path that we follow. So sometimes the client is able to get their wishes down and written and to be respected, even if the children are not necessarily ready to or on board with just letting mom go. And we really help them understand what each of the different categories that they're sharing their wishes means, and what the advance directive, basically, the power that it gives and how it is going to work to follow what you want.
Robin, it sounds to me like when a person comes to Kimbrough Law, that the process that they're going to go through is really one that is it's handled with compassion, with sensitivity. It's not just a cold legal document. It's really a conversation of the heart.
Right. And that's one of the things that I always tell new clients when we're talking to them is you're going to come in and have a conversation with our attorneys about what your wishes are. We look at the whole person and the whole dynamics of the family, not just a document. This is a person represented in that document. And it's not as simple as just signing a piece of paper. We really try to make sure everybody understands. And it's nice to have that conversation because then if the family is in a crisis and that daughter that I mentioned who wasn't really on board, she knows that she heard mom say this is what she wants. So in some ways, even though losing her mom is going to be really difficult, that gives her that peace of mind that she did what mom wanted.
Thank you. If you are interested in an advance directive, Kimbrough Law can help, and just give our office a call. You can reach us by phone, email, and we also offer virtual consultations.
If you need help talking to your family about the difficult topics discussed in this video, Kimbrough Law's free guide, How to Have a Conversation, is a great place to start. Download your free PDF at kimbroughslaw.net.